This also works in digital design, and I actually think that you get way more control over the resulting color when you're using this model. Let me show you what I mean. So when we're switching from RGB to HSB, we get a similar interface. This first value stands for hue, second saturation, third brightness. So here's how this works. Every hue on the color wheel can be represented by a value from 0 to 360 degrees. So for example, red is both 0 and 360 degrees. But then, as I move the slider to the left, you can see that the hue number changes. For example, blue is around 200 degrees, like so. And then the second value, saturation. This basically tells us how pure that color is. So if I bring this all the way up to 100%, it's going to be fully saturated. I can set it at 50%, and that's going to be the midway point between no saturation and full saturation. And then brightness. How bright is this color? 100%? Okay, then it's totally towards white. But if I set this to 50%, then it's halfway down towards black. And I said that this is a great way of getting finer control over the resulting color. And that's because, let's say that I want, a color that looks something like this. And I want to find other colors, but I don't exactly like the way this is going. So maybe I can tamper with the saturation a little bit, maybe 70%, or maybe I want more saturation, let's say 85%. Maybe I want a bit more brightness, let's say 90%, right? So I can fine-tune a color by using these numbers. This also comes in handy when I want to create a color palette, right? So let's say I want to add another color to my design. And let's say that I want to keep the same levels of saturation and brightness, but only change the hue. Well, I can very easily do that. I can say, okay, let's try it with this hue, or maybe that's not working. Let's try it with something like this, 25 degrees for the hue, which gives us this orange color. All right, or maybe I want to go the other direction. Maybe I want to add a purple, something like this. So by using HSB, or hue, saturation, brightness, you can fine-tune the resulting colors in your project. Now, there is another color format that's widely used, and that's the hexadecimal, or in short, hex. This is made up of a hash sign in front and then 6 letters or numbers. This is a friendlier way of displaying RGB colors because the first 2 letters or numbers refer to red, the next 2 refer to green, and the last 2 refer to blue. So if we jump back and we switch to hex, you can see that this is the color format. Right here, it's without the hash sign in front, but usually in CSS, you would use a hash sign. So for now, this is comprised of A7 for red, 22 for green, E5 for blue. These are written in hexadecimal format, hence the name of the color format. And as I said, it's a friendlier way of representing an RGB color. So instead of, using this format, it's much easier to just copy this, paste it somewhere else, and it's just as good. In fact, I think the hex format is the most popular when it comes to web design. A lot of websites that work with color, like gradient generators or color scheme generators, will usually provide the colors in hex format. And then you can copy those, you can paste them in your design software, and you're good to go. Now, let's see some key takeaways. There are three primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. These represent the building blocks for all the other colors. The secondary colors are obtained by mixing the primary ones. Red plus yellow equals orange, red plus blue equals purple, blue plus yellow equals green. Tertiary colors are obtained by mixing primary and secondary colors. A hue is the dominant family of a given color. Tints, shades, and tones are obtained by mixing a color with white, black, and gray, respectively. The CMYK color model, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, is used for printing. The RGB, or red, green, and blue, and HSB, which stands for hue, saturation, brightness, models are used in digital media. The hexadecimal or hex color format is a more friendlier way of representing RGB colors. All right, so now that you hopefully understand more about how color is created and represented on our screens, let's dig a little deeper and learn about how to pick the right colors for our projects. And it all starts with color harmonies and psychology. That's up next. Working with color can be daunting at times, especially for a beginner, because sure, you know the theory, but how do you put it into practice? How do you pick colors that work best for your project, but also work well together? Well, to answer that, let's begin by learning about color psychology, or the meaning of color. Let me just start by saying that what I'm about to show you is not an absolute truth. It's more of a set of guidelines, because color can have different meanings in different contexts, in different cultures, but generally speaking, it goes something like this. Red is the color of passion, and it's great for grabbing attention or getting a message across. It represents intensity, energy, excitement, and it's very often used in sports-related websites or in websites that want to make a bold statement. Next up is blue, the color of the skies and the seas. This is the most used color on the internet, fun fact, and it conveys trust, calm, peace, intelligence, security. It's highly used by tech brands like Twitter and Facebook, but also by a lot of financial institutions and political parties. Let's talk about yellow. This is a very fun yet very bold color. It's the color of the sun, so it brings joy and happiness. It can also convey warmth and energy, and it's used a lot in the entertainment industry and in children's toys. Next up, green, which is the predominant color of nature. It represents health, well-being, balance, fertility, safety, and it's usually associated with brands from the health industry, with eco brands, with medical products, and, of course, with anything related to landscaping, gardening, and so on. Orange is the color of happiness, joy, and confidence. Since it's made of red and yellow, it also borrows traits from those two, like energy and optimism. Orange is said to be the color of communication, but it also works really well in lots of different contexts because it's complementary to blue. And finally, we have purple, one of my favorite colors. It stands for luxury, royalty, wealth, sophistication, and it's usually associated with luxury brands and high-end products. All right, so now that you have an understanding of how color can be perceived, let's talk about color harmonies. Let's say that you picked a primary color for your project, but how do you know which colors work well with that primary? How do you create a color palette for your project? Well, this is where color harmonies and a color wheel come in very handy. Let me show you. Let's say that you picked this blue color as your primary. And what you need to do is copy its color code, and you need to go to color.adobe.com. This is a great tool that I recommend for every web designer. And what you do is you find the color that is indicated by this caret, which is the base color, and then you paste in your blue. And just like that, Adobe is going to give you updates. Sorry about that. I meant suggestions, not updates. Suggestions for possible colors. And these suggestions are based on color harmonies. And we have a couple of them here. And if you switch between them, you'll see the suggestions of colors change, but also you'll see how those colors are being built. So let's start with analogous. This harmony will basically pick neighboring colors for your base. And as you can see, if I'm going to move my base color around, the neighbors will move as well, right? And of course, the resulting color scheme will be changed as well. Monochromatic will basically give you tints and shades for your base color. Triad looks something like this, right? So you get kind of a 3-point star with the base color being on one end of the star, and it just creates a color scheme like so. Complementary is the most contrasting color scheme because it uses colors from the opposite end of the spectrum. So for example, if I were to use that blue that I got from Sketch as a complement, it gives me a nice orange color that sits on the opposite end of the spectrum. And of course, as I switch around, you can see the colors that are being generated. Split complementary is pretty similar. Instead of one color on the opposite end of the spectrum, it kind of picks two. So it gives you more variation in your color palette. Double split complementary is very similar, but on top of the opposite colors, it also picks two neighboring colors. And then we have square, which looks like this, compound. And then you can also use Adobe Color to get shades of a base color, which is really cool. Now, out of all these, I believe that analogous, monochromatic, and complementary are the most used. But obviously, don't let that stop you. If you cycle through these and you find a color combination that you like and you think would work well, then by all means, go ahead and use that in your project. But usually you'll probably stick with these three: analogous, monochromatic, or complementary. Now, since I showed you Adobe Color, which by the way is an awesome tool and I recommend it to everyone, I'm also going to show you a few more so that whenever you need them, you know exactly where to go. So here are a few more useful tools for working with color. The first one is called Color Space. It's currently in beta. You can find it at mycolor.space. But basically what you do is you paste in your color code, or you can use the picker to pick your color right here and there. And you click generate, and that's going to generate a bunch of color palettes for you with your base color as the origin, as the first one here. So you can just cycle through them, and when you find one that you like, you can simply copy that and use it in your project. So that is Color Space. Next is Color Hunt. You can search for palettes based on the color that you want. You can also use some of these filters here like retro, and that's going to give you like a pre-selection of different color palettes, which is really nice. You can, click on a specific color and that's going to copy it to your clipboard. Really cool. Next, we have Muesli Colors by InVision. Actually, this is a very cool app. So you can paste in a color code or name, or you can pick one of the colors, And what's really cool about it is it gives you a live UI kit demo